So the trade war between the US and China is only escalating. This morning, China announced it's raising tariffs on US goods to 125%, while the US is digging in its heels.
Tariffs. You've probably been hearing about them nonstop since Trump came into office. But more recently, you've been hearing about them because the value of your 401k and investment portfolio just dropped by more than a few percentage points. The government keeps talking about how we need to level the playing field when it comes to trade, but they don't really break down what this means for regular people, especially nurses. This isn't just about politics. It's about the price of gas, groceries, your 401k, medical supplies, insurance costs, and why your next shift at work might be short-staffed if this tariff war keeps getting worse. These tariffs are going to mess with your job, your money, your patience, and the entire system we work in. So let's talk about it. First, what is a tariff and how does it work? All right, I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible. A tariff is just a fancy word for a tax. Instead of being taken out of your paycheck like income tax, it's slapped onto stuff that we buy from other countries like gloves, syringes, computers, cars, even hospital equipment. Let's say a hospital buys a shipment of surgical gloves from China. If there's a 25% tariff, that means that those gloves cost 25% more by the time they arrive here. The extra cost doesn't stay with the supplier. The hospital has to pay it. And then the hospital turns around and raises its own prices to make up the difference. That ripple effect is going to land on the patients, nurses, and anyone else caught in this system. And here's the thing, the US income tax system is a progressive tax system. So the more money you make, the more you're going to pay in income taxes. So someone making $50,000 pays less in taxes as a percentage than someone making $500,000. But tariffs, on the other hand, they don't work like that. They're flat taxes. So everyone pays the same higher price for goods no matter how much money they make. So let me make this as real as possible for you. If gas goes up $1 per gallon because of tariffs, a billionaire and a nurse both pay that extra dollar, but it hits differently. For the billionaire, it's a drop in the bucket, right? But for a nurse trying to make rent, that extra $1 every gallon adds up, especially if they're commuting 30 miles to work 3 to 4 times a week like a lot of us do. And it's not just gas, it's groceries, it's diapers, it's rent. Tariffs hit everything, especially stuff that regular people spend most of their money on differently. And that's why it hits the working class way harder than the wealthy. And now that we know how tariffs work, let's talk about how these tariffs are going to raise the cost of healthcare. The US imports a ton of medical equipment, syringes, surgical masks, IV pumps, monitors, you name it. They import almost everything. And a good chunk of it comes from countries like China. Now imagine those items cost 25 to 50% more overnight. And mind you, Trump has said that he's going to raise the tariffs on China to well over 100%. Now, hospitals already spend over $146 billion every year on supplies. So what's going to happen? They raise their own prices, they look for ways to cut costs, and guess what's usually first when it comes to cutting costs? Staffing, overtime, resources. So while the hospital's paying more for gloves and syringes, they might be asking you to take on more patients, skip your break one more time, or wait another year for a raise. But that's not where it ends. Hospitals raise their prices. That also means that insurance companies have to pay out more. And if there's one thing insurance companies hate, it's paying more. So what do they do instead? They start denying more claims. They tighten their approval process. They look for reasons to say no to stuff that they used to cover, as if it's already not bad enough with the insurance industry. And then this is going to lead to more patients getting surprise bills, more people stuck in medical debt, more people skipping care because they just can't afford it. And when they finally do show up, they're sicker, they're in worse shape, and they need more help. And that's when they come through the ER doors, where I currently work. And you know how that goes. And when prices go up, people are going to lose their jobs. This part gets overlooked a lot, but it actually does matter. When companies have to pay more for raw materials, parts, or shipping, they try to protect their profits. They're not just gonna let this slide by and make less money. And they usually do this by cutting back on labor. That means that layoffs are going to happen. When someone loses their job, they usually lose their health insurance too. So now you've got someone who needs care but can't afford it. They skip checkups, they ignore any warning signs, and they pray that it's just going to go away, but it doesn't. So they wait until it's an emergency. And where do they go when they have an emergency? The ER. That's the safety net for them. And that's where we see them. By the time they come in, they're way sicker. Their care becomes more complex than before, and we're the ones trying to hold it all together. But that's not where it ends. China has decided that they're going to shut the door on rare earth minerals. These aren't just some fancy gems. They're actually used in real everyday healthcare tools and devices like MRI machines, CT scanners, pacemakers, surgical robots. Without these materials, it's going to be harder to make new equipment. And even if companies find a workaround, it's slower and even more expensive. There's only one big company in the US that can process these minerals at large scale. And they're just getting started. It's gonna take years to catch up. In the meantime, we're stuck with delays, back orders, and rising costs for the tools that we need to do our jobs. But here's the part that actually stings. When hospitals need to save money, they don't start by slashing executive bonuses. No, they're not gonna cut the bonus of a CEO or cut $1 million consultant fees. What they're going to start with is us, nurses, social workers, techs, housekeeping, anyone they think they can do more with less. Those are the jobs they're going to cut. Raises for staff are going to get pushed back. Staff is going to get stretched thinner and thinner, and positions are going to go unfilled. And when good people get fed up and leave, the rest of us are left to carry that load. On the other hand, prices are also climbing, but paychecks aren't. If you've looked and paid attention to the inflation rate over the last 4 or 5 years, you would have noticed that things are getting more expensive, but your paycheck isn't increasing in relation to that added cost. Groceries are more expensive, gas is more expensive, childcare is more expensive, and now healthcare supplies are joining that list. All while wages are stuck. Most economists studying the effects of what these tariffs are going to do think that the US economy might barely grow this year. Some even say that we're already in a soft recession, and that means less hiring, smaller raises, and more penny pinching from every single direction. Hospitals are not even immune to this. They're businesses too, just like corporate America. And when their budgets get squeezed, the cost cutting comes fast. But here's why working people are going to feel it the most. Rich people don't live like the rest of us. They don't spend most of their money on bills and groceries. They invest. They hold assets. If prices rise, they adjust their spending or move money around. But the average person, especially a nurse, is living on a tighter margin than this. When food, gas, and rent go up, there's nowhere else to pull from. A $50 jump in weekly expenses can mean skipping a prescription refill, postponing a doctor visit, letting a medical issue linger longer than it's supposed to. And that's how a small problem is going to turn into a bigger emergency. More patients show up needing more help, and they end up in departments that are already overwhelmed. This isn't just about trade policy. Tariffs aren't some abstract economic tool. They touch every single part of your life, from your paycheck to your workload. They raise the cost of living, they increase the cost of care, they create more chaos in hospitals, and they do all this while claiming to protect American jobs. But the truth is, they protect profits more than they do people. Nurses, and honestly anyone living paycheck to paycheck, need to understand how these tariffs are really going to affect them. They're not just about making other countries pay more. They're going to squeeze families, patients, and healthcare workers here at home. And they're going to hit the healthcare system hard. But If you got something out of this video, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And check out this next video where I talk about how Monica and I put ourselves in a better position so we don't feel the panic we used to feel during COVID when prices started to climb.